Hello, everybody. Thank you so much for being with us here today at the Messy Disciples. I know we have been a little intermittent this year on putting out some videos, and so we really appreciate you sticking with us and continuing to give us the great feedback and the great encouragement to continue here. It's been a really super busy year for Pastor Bob, myself as well. So we're very thankful to be here today, and we're thankful that you're joining us. And we wanted to talk. We're right now. Are we in the middle? Are we in the beginning of Lent? Where are we right now? Beginning of Lent?
We're kind of beginning-ish. Yeah, we're 1 week past. We're in the first week after Lent 1. Lent began last Wednesday with Ash Wednesday. Wow, that was really complicated.
That was a lot, yeah. So so we're just into it, but we're not at the very beginning.
Right.
And already I am struggling. And so I really wanted to get some of your thoughts on this. This is normally, if I'm going to bring up a topic, it's because I've had some kind of interaction with other people that have given me some kind of indication that I am not alone. Such is not the case today. And for no other reason except simply I haven't shared this with anyone, but I really wanted to get your take on it in the event that other people are having difficulty like I am. So I'm hoping maybe you can give us a little bit. I picked something to give up for Lent, and it came at the behest of my youngest daughter, who, while on the drive home from school, which lasts all of about 6.5 minutes, I realized I hadn't given anything up for Lent, and I hadn't even prepared. I hadn't even thought of it. So it kind of culminated in driving my kids home by my youngest daughter, which is a trip that takes all of about 6.5 minutes, and I realized at that moment that I hadn't given any thought to Lent. I hadn't given any thought about what I was going to give up. And so I drew off of the extremely limited mental recollection that I've had from years of being raised Catholic and the brain damage associated therein. I just, but I tried to say, okay, we're supposed to give up something that we really like, and we're going to try to do that. And so the thing that came to me at that moment that was the most prevalent thing on my mind that I like was cheese.
Oh no.
Yeah, and so I committed in 22 seconds to giving up cheese, not really fully understanding the mountain that I was about to try to undertake. And Pastor Bob, I have failed miserably. I have absolutely failed miserably at trying to not eat cheese. And I know that it sounds ridiculous, and it really got me thinking on a couple of things. And so I'm going to pose these things to you, and I'm just going to let you take it away from there. So here are my thoughts on this, and then maybe you can put me into a place where I could feel less miserable about myself and maybe still achieve something in the Lent season. But of course, I'm joking, but maybe, for the future, for next year, or maybe if I could even, have some kind of a rebirth here in the middle of this Lent. What are some ideas on how to pick things to give up for Lent?
Yeah.
And more importantly than that, once I do decide upon something that I can give up for Lent, what are some ideas for me and others that are having the same kind of challenges as me to stick to it and actually make it something that is more appropriate for the symbolism of what it is that the whole giving up Lent idea is. And just for the record, everybody, this was not anything that Pastor Bob had prepared. I completely threw this at him last minute here, and it is my own selfish motivations that created this. But I know that he's right in the middle of Lent and he's really super busy, so I figured it would be an appropriate thing to throw at you. So what do you think on this, Pastor Bob?
Well, I think there's three things to keep in mind when doing a Lenten practice. And the first, in your case, what can cheese teach you about God? And so the thing that you give up for Lent is not because you're trying to mortify yourself before God. So he goes, good, excellent. Now you are humble. So he's not trying to make you suffer because he likes to watch us squirm. But you pick something that is pretty central in your life that you may be suspicious that it's your God. You can't live a day without it. And so when it comes to like foods and drinks, if you can't go one day without a glass of wine, then maybe that's a good thing to practice a little Lenten discipline on, and to say, you know, um, what do I need the most in my life? Well, I'm going to give up wine because I may think I need that every day just to get by. And so I'm going to give that up because I'm admitting I need God more. And so, what can my needs tell me about my relationship with God? So, in that case, don't pick something that you must have to survive. Like, don't give up air for Lent, right? And certainly don't pull a Stephen Colbert and give up church for Lent, right? So, don't do those things. But when giving something up, it's saying, what can giving this thing up teach me about my relationship with God? What is so important in my life and it's not God? And can I live without that? And can that teach me about how God has a better and more appropriate place in my life? That's the first thing when picking something for Lent. Secondly, um, what you're meant to do historically in the practice of giving stuff up for Lent is you're meant to get rid of something in your life and then spend the time that you would normally spend doing that thing, doing like a devotion to God. And devotion isn't just like reading and like praying and sitting in the quiet room. Right? So devotion is focusing on the teaching of the faith that manifests itself in like a practical experience in your life or in the world. So do I give up Facebook, for instance, and all the time that I spend on Facebook, do I then spend that time teaching my kids how to pray?
Oh,
See how that works?
oh,
So
that
whatever
makes a
you give
lot more
up,
sense.
whatever time you spent doing that thing, you now dedicate that to God.
Wow.
Isn't that fun?
Yeah, that means a lot more
Yeah, yeah,
than
exactly.
simply, trying to deprive yourself of something. It's
Yeah,
a lot. That is really cool. That's
yeah.
a cool connection right there.
And so you have the first thing, which is what can giving up this thing teach me about God and what I need. The second thing is whatever I'm giving up, I spend that time with God in devotion. And again, devotion is not just reading. I went through that. I'm not going to repeat myself. And then the third thing is I like to add for Lent. And so, because at a certain point, you can only give so much up, before you're just an ascetic living in a cave, eating bugs and, drinking from a stream or something. I don't know. And so I like to add for Lent. So I add to my devotional life. I'm a preacher. And so um, when I'm in the word, it comes out in what I preach and what I teach. So I add more Bible reading during Lent because that manifests itself in my Lenten life. And so I like to add for Lent. And so I know families who add like doing acts of charity. This is when, as a family, they volunteer at a soup kitchen. This is when, as a family, they paint a neighbor's, house or garage or something. Not a whole house, but like a garage or something. Like elderly neighbor who needs help with something, the family volunteers to do that. So the third thing is to add more. What do you think about that?
I love it. I love it. And it's so amazing in just a few moments right there how you completely turned around what I really thought it was all about. And I'm so glad that I asked. That's
And so
amazing.
have
Have cheese. Yeah, I did. and I
cheese.
could and I couldn't stop. But now that I see, and the funny thing is because as you're talking, and now I'm understanding more about what the true purpose is, I was thinking, well, it really doesn't take me that long to eat a piece of cheese. So it really isn't helpful anyhow if I'm going to take that time and then redevote it to doing something else. And I love the idea of adding. I really think that maybe that for me is the most impactful part of what you just said, because it really what you're trying to say is that this is a time for us to be able to try and take more of our time
Yep.
and devote it to, I'm going to say, being in the word, because you and I talk so much about that and how powerful it is for somebody that is not a preacher to become more connected to Jesus and become more connected to our faith. And so what you really just blew my mind, because my entire life, here I am 44 years old, my entire life, at least my conscious life, has got to be 36 years. I have always thought that Lent was about removing things to deprive yourself so that you could feel the kinds of things that Jesus felt when he was, going through his trials and tribulations. And I'm not going to say it could be further from the truth, but it could be further from the truth, right? It couldn't be further from the truth.
Yeah, I mean, I just remember what Jesus said to the Pharisees and the disciples of John. The Pharisees came to him and said, "Hey, listen, the disciples of the Pharisees are fasting, and John's disciples are fasting. Why aren't your disciples fasting?" And Jesus says, "Why would people fast when the bridegroom is with them?"
When the bridegroom, what? The audio slipped out.
Sorry, when the bridegroom is with us. And so Jesus is saying, don't fast for any reason except to be closer to God,
It's funny. I love this. I'm so thankful that we talked about this, because it's interesting. I had a conversation with a friend of mine about fasting. He sent me a real interesting article about biblical fasting and how to do it, what's good about it, why do you want to be doing it, and it's just interesting. It's interesting, to hear you say the same thing as as we are in this period, but then to hear you say that really what we should be doing during this time is trying to connect more and trying simply to spend time. So pick something that you can give up, that you're spending a lot of idle time with, or think something that you may not feel is particularly productive, and then take that time and repurpose it so that you can, and especially if you have kids, I think what you said was incredibly appropriate, to be able, because how many of us spend that time, for example, on social media, just brain dead browsing, trying to pass some time, or relax or unplug, when instead maybe you turn around and say some prayers, or pick up the Bible and read a Bible story, or something along those lines. And I think that is very powerful, and that's something that I can completely commit to during Lent. That changes everything. Thank you, Pastor Bob.
I think at your house tonight, you should have a whole cheese platter.
I'm going to do it. I'm going to set it all up. Hey, everybody, thanks so much for joining us for this little tidbit here. If anybody has some questions or want to share your own trials and tribulations about what you're struggling with Lent, or after hearing what Pastor Bob has said here today, if you want to share some of the things maybe that you're going to start doing, or if you've had no trouble with Lent and you are a pro, we'd love to hear about how you do it too. Please leave some comments in the section below for us, and we will certainly get back with you.
Yeah, good. See you guys. Thanks for watching today. It's been a great conversation. We'd love for you to be a part of the conversation, so go ahead and click subscribe. And if you hit the notification bar, it'll let you know when new videos are coming out, which is really important because all of our videos are about new and current events that are happening. If you have any questions, go ahead and contact me via email. It's great to have you a part of the conversation. Thanks for joining us. Bye.